Hello and welcome to Beau Talks. I'm your host, Beau Braden. Today we have a very special guest, MacKenzie Ellertson, newly 21-year-old soccer player at Washington State University, a dear friend of mine. I mean, like, I want to be able to portray you in a way where it's like, oh, like you're not just black and gay.
Black. That's great. So I actually appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah, no, of course. You're like, well, she's also an athlete.
Yes, did you know that?
Mm-hmm. Kenzie, thank you for coming on.
Thank you for having me. I feel famous right now.
Of course. Before we get into the recent news that I want to discuss with you, I kind of want to get some more background on you. So kind of talk about your upbringing through soccer and how your mom influenced you and brought you up in that.
So I grew up in Little Vancouver, just like you, and my mom, big soccer player, and it was cool to, see the path she went on. So I did the same thing and decided to play soccer, and being in Vancouver, Washington, is a very predominantly white place. So I was pretty much the only black kid on a lot of my sports teams, maybe a few other ones here and there. But yeah, I just played soccer, ended up really liking it. I played basketball, did track as well. Just did that throughout growing up, and then ended up sticking with soccer, and then now I'm here with that.
So for those who don't know, Mom is Tina Frimpong-Ellertson, member of U.S. Women's National Team, won a gold?
I think she got bronze.
Yeah,
she didn't get the gold. I think they got bronze in her year.
Okay, both of us are children of Husky Hall of Famers.
Yep.
Interesting that they both got Coug athletes out of that.
Yeah.
But talk a little bit about how it was as a coach's kid.
Being a coach's kid, I think is actually a big reason why I'm the player I am today. Being a coach's kid, you get a lot of flack from people. You're only playing because your mom's the coach, or you're only getting this opportunity because your mom is who she is. It kind of caused me to be a big passer, and now I'm a midfielder, and passing is my thing. So I think it helped me, but being a coach's kid is hard. I don't know, were you ever a coach's kid briefly for anything?
Not really. I mean, I started swimming very young. My dad's a swim coach, and so I swam for his club, but I was never under him in the senior group. But there was always like you're Jody Braden's kid. And then especially with, I'm sure soccer is the same way as swimming, where it's a very tight community and everybody seems to know everyone.
Yeah.
And so my thing growing up in that, my dad and my mom being a very successful swimmer. I mean, Mom was all Pac-10, I think.
Your mom was a swimmer?
Yeah, my mom was a swimmer at Oregon State.
I never knew that.
She was all Pac-10 at least 3 years, I think all 4 at Oregon State. And then my dad was top 3 in the world a couple times at 400 IM.
Casual.
Like excellent swimmers. And so there was recognition with both of my parents, being in the Portland area with my mom's name, and then my dad, seemed like everybody knew him through coaching and swimming. So my thing is I wanted to make a name for myself in another avenue, and I just always was obsessed with football. And when I decided to focus on that full time, I think it was my mom who had a harder time with it. I think my dad being a coach and seeing how parents are, especially when they played the sport, he wanted me to just have fun and do what I loved. But they were very supportive through all of that.
See, that's cool. My mom was very, not in a bad way, but she was like, you're pretty good at soccer, so you're going to stick with it. And there was a time where I wanted to quit. I actually remember in 8th grade, I went up to her. I was talking to some of my friends in middle school, and they're like, if you're not having fun with it, you should tell her. And I was like, okay, guys, here goes nothing. And I told my mom, I was like, Mom, after school, I was like, Mom, I would like to quit. And she just said no. And then I never asked again, and I'm very thankful because I was just being a little punk. But I just think it's funny. Different parents are a little bit different.
It definitely has to come from you. And that's where I see a lot of, kids get burnt out when it's more the parent's dream. And that's something like being around gyms and like a lot of trainers, you see the super young kids doing really serious drills, and it's just not fun for them.
No, and it like breaks my heart because my mom, I always was like super driven on my own. My mom just brought that out of me. But if I was ever like going that hard as a kid, it just makes me sad because it's like I know they're gonna burn out, and it's just gonna be sad.
And I feel like with some of that, I've met a lot of people who went through that where they were very serious at a young age, and everything was kind of laid out for them, like the plan and going through the drills and all the different trainers, and you're very serious about becoming a college or professional athlete your whole life, and then they get to this point of, you and I being 21, 22, and then a lot of these kids really get to this point in their athletic careers where they're still very much children.
100%. I think that's, I never even really thought about that, but it's actually really true because they don't like develop on their own. Everything's kind of created for them.
Yeah, no, you're being
never even thought about that.
Told
what
like
to
everything you need to do. Yeah, and that's like, I'll see that a lot. Like, I don't know. I feel like I've matured a lot since my career ended. But, like, I'll see it in different avenues. Like, now that I'm not getting yelled at 6 a.m., I have no clue what to do in a gym. Like, I'm very much learning.
I wouldn't know. I would have no clue.
Mm-hmm.
That's interesting.
But back to your upbringing and career, would you tell me about your experience at Kingsway? We both went to Kingsway Christian School. I went there 6th through 9th grade. And I believe I've talked a little bit before on my experience there and why I left. But would you talk about that?
Yes. So I was blessed with going to Kingsway from preschool to senior year of just straight Kingsway. Straight. That's my bad. Anyways, I really liked Kingsway at first, honestly. Like I had no problems with it. I think that their elementary school is great because, I mean, it's really not that deep. It's elementary school.
Yeah.
I think that, they education-wise, you do great, all that stuff. Once I got to middle school, that's when things started getting a little bit interesting because, people are growing up, and that's when I first started really dealing with, like, a little bit of, I'm not going to say racism, but looking back on my experience after I've graduated and educated myself, it's a lot of microaggressions. And so it's kind of hard dealing with those because you're taught like, oh, well, I'm not being called this, that, and the other, but they're making little comments. So it's like, oh, I shouldn't make a big deal out of it. That's always how I was. And so middle school, I started dealing with a little bit of microaggressions. Just people in that area had some interesting outlooks.
Yeah, outlooks, worldview.
Yeah, worldview, just stuff like that. A little bit interesting. So I was learning, but my big thing when I was at Kingsway was to just blend in as much as possible. Mm-hmm. So I would identify as a Republican in that time, unfortunately. Can't win them all. But yeah, then into high school was when it got, I would say, much worse because the education level of race, gender, don't even talk about gender at Kingsway because there's only 2, quote unquote, for them. Mm-hmm. Sexuality, like it was all just like, we didn't talk about it, and if we did, this is bad, this is bad, this is bad. So going through that was very interesting for me, and I didn't even realize a lot of the stuff that I went through until I graduated and left. But I don't want to harp on them because I think that there's a lot of great people at that school, and I was taught a lot of awesome things, but there was a lot that went unnoticed and uneducated and like untalked about. So that's mostly my experience there.
Tell me a little bit more about your education in some of those areas.
Yeah, so looking back, the only talk I've ever had about at least my community, the African American community, was we just talked about slavery. And I remember we talk about it, everyone turns their head, looks at me, the only black kid, and I'm like, I'm not even slavery's done. Why are y'all bringing me into this right now? But like we just talk about slavery and very briefly the N-word. I've heard too many teachers say that. That's a story for another time. But yeah, it's just you don't learn, oh, well, everyone's equal in God's eyes. That's it. That's the answer. We don't talk about actual hate crimes, things that people are going through, like even financially, government-wise, stuff like that. We never talked about any of that stuff. So I just never knew anything. Yeah. And so that's why it made it super easy for me to identify as a Republican in that time, because I was never told anything else. And everything else that, Black Lives Matter movement, oh, that's just Black people looking for a handout, and they don't even know what they're talking about, blah, 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 blah. So I was super, super just sheltered in that area, and I never learned until I left.
I found it really interesting how at that school, at least in my experience, it felt like worldview was very set for you.
100%.
And like in my experience, I talked about this on the show with Dylan, and we'll see which one of these release first. But I remember it was 2012, so Obama was rerunning for president against
is that the Mormon guy?
Yeah. Yeah.
We know
Mitt Romney.
Yes.
And a history teacher had like copies of ballots. Like she made copies of ballots, and in the class we all did like a voting exercise. And then she like tallied up everything in the certain fields. Mm-hmm. And then when myself and one other girl, we were the only two people to vote yes on gay marriage, because that was when that was like getting talked about being legalized. We were the only two to vote yes on that. And then she told us about how we were wrong to vote for that. And then
who was it?
Miss Marvin.
Miss Marvin? Oh, did she get porn on the screen? Was that real?
Yeah,
okay,
she had the
porn on the screen.
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I never had her, I don't think. I think she left. I think she got fired the year before me.
Yeah, because
I didn't have her.
Track coach in middle school.
Oh, maybe
my seventh grade year.
I remember her.
But
I'm just not sure when she was around.
6th grade. I think she did 6th grade history.
But I think the next year she got fired before, because that's the year we had like 500 teachers and everyone got fired. That was my year.
Oh my god!
I never had her. That was
we
a mess.
had what was it, like 4 different Bible teachers in one year?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, that was the teacher turnover at that school is ridiculous.
Well, thank God our Bible teacher had a degree in hair.
She
was I don't know what that's called.
Yeah, she was
a hairdresser.
Yeah.
I don't know, but she had nothing in regards to Bible, so
esthetician degree or something.
Yeah, that'll do it.
And like, well, she goes to church.
Yeah, so she can educate the youth and just tell them how Black people are not that great and gay people are going to hell. Got it. That's all you need.
Amen, queen. I think maybe we get into David Moore's story. Mm-hmm. So for those of you who have not seen, so David Moore, soccer player at Seton Catholic High School, rival school of Kingsway, the Holy War. He was going for a PK, correct?
Yeah,
penalty
PK
kick.
got called.
PK gets called, and as he's lining up to do a shot, you hear monkey noises in the crowd. And my thing with this, as somebody who attended Kingsway, and this was coming from the Kingsway student section, disgusting behavior, but unfortunately, like, not surprising or shocking at all. What were the emotions you went through seeing that from the school you attended?
Watching that was definitely hard, but in a really weird way, I'm so grateful that it happened, because I've been talking about stuff that Kingsway students have been saying for the past literal 10 years. I've talked about it to my mom, and she's like, I'm sure this, that, and the other, maybe they don't. And she's always, trying to make peace of the situation. But now, like, you can, it's a video. You can't, make that up. I felt bad for him, because being a Black athlete anywhere, especially in a private school, like just how Kingsway is, I know it's hard as is. So to have Kingsway students saying that to him, and like, it really makes me mad. But above everything else, I'm just happy that we were able to catch that on video, and now like he's using his platform to create so much positive change. One thing that makes me mad is Kingsway says it wasn't their student now.
Yeah.
But it's like no student's gonna be like, oh yeah, that was me in the viral video. That's like I'm not saying it was a Kingsway student because again we don't know.
Yeah.
But I don't know why a Seton Catholic student would be doing that to their own person. I don't know again, but I'm very, very willing to bet that it was one of the Kingsway students, and I think the way that Kingsway is responding to it is just not enough. They're just trying to shirk it off, in my opinion, rather than deal with it. And so in my tweet, I was like, I think this is a great opportunity, regardless of who said it, regardless of, whatever. It's a great opportunity to just educate your students and maybe have one of our many chapel talks that we have every Wednesday. Maybe we could just talk about some injustices and some things that people have to go through and how to make people feel comfortable in your community. So I think overall it's just a good learning experience, but it's so annoying that it took this incident because that will affect him regardless of how positively he may be, reacting to it. That'll affect him forever. So yeah, I'm just happy he's making good of the situation, which is really powerful.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, my thing, especially seeing how Kingsway is dealing with the situation is really, it's a letdown, and
100%.
It's on brand with the lack of accountability. And my worry is that they're going to find the student or students who did it, and they'll get suspended or expelled or whatever. And then they'll have like the assembly like, oh, like this isn't okay, like don't do this, and then just move on from it. And there's not going to be any more education on these kind of things, and these kids are going to keep going on in this pattern that we've seen for so many years of Kingsway students in these small private Christian and Catholic schools where they're so uneducated in these fields.
And it's, in my opinion, because the school's being funded by these higher-up parents, and the superintendent of Kingsway values those people, and you can tell that he doesn't really value the actual, students. I remember it was posted one time on a Kingsway account. It was asking for money for donors, and it was like to help Kingsway students who need it, blah, 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 blah. And it's a picture of a black kid and a black mom, like a black family. And people are like, okay, it's fine. But it's like, obviously that's not the demographic of the school. So why is that being painted as the person who needs help the most? And how is that okay?
You of the sororities on campus here where they have like the one
token,
Hispanic girl, and then it's like, she's in every
and like
promo clip.
I had a big falling out with Kingsway because of me coming out and dating my girlfriend. So they unfollowed me on Twitter, on Instagram. That I'm shut out from that school. But my picture is still on the sports brochure website, I think to this day. So it's funny to see how they value you and what they actually care about.
Yeah, like,
and then they wonder why it's a little bit frustrating when these issues happen. Oh, but you represent me here and you think so highly of me here and as a sports person, but I'm unfollowing you because you're gay and you're going to hell and all this stuff. It's frustrating. We don't take all of you.
Yeah. Just what you did for us.
Exactly. So. We just roasted him there. That's definitely going in there. That's some heat. Yeah. 100%. I can't wait to send this to bleep out his name, bitch ass nigga, bro. But I hate that guy so much. Oh my God. I hope he sees this.
I was never there while he was there.
He is the worst. It was Maddie Watson when she was there. Took over. She was supposed to be in charge of the Instagram. He posted something about something racist, like literally something racist. I can't remember. But I was talking to Maddie Watson about it. And she's like, yeah, so there was parents that were reaching out. And they're like, this is a little bit like, you kind of misread the situation. You need to take this down. Super nice. So Maddie Watson logs back onto the Instagram and deletes it. And Jason Tyndall texts out to the staff and goes, so why was that post taken down, blah, blah, blah. And they're like, oh, we had a lot of parents reaching out because it was racially insensitive. You can't post that stuff. And if Kingsway parents are saying it, it's actually fucked up. Yeah. So this is his response. This is how I knew this nigga was no good from day one. He goes, oh, well, I'm from the South, so I don't really catch this type of stuff. Cowboy emoji.
Oh, my God.
That's when Matty Watson's like, I'm done with that school.
Jesus.
But like, so like from the get, he doesn't get that type of stuff. So it's maybe that should be a requirement for being a superintendent of a school. You should be able to sense racism.
Yeah.
I think that's a good start. So, but I guess it's too much to ask. Cowboy emoji. Thank God.
Did you deal with any like blatant racism from coaches, administrators, teachers?
Well, my basketball coach, there's one basketball coach that's amazing. So not the main one, but one of the assistants. They were talking about me playing basketball because I played basketball. I did club. I think I started in 4th grade, a little bit later, but I really liked basketball. And they were talking about how, like, I chose basketball and soccer at the same time and how I did that, blah, blah, blah. And they were like, well, I mean, obviously you're going to be good at basketball because, you know, look at you. And I was shorter at the time, so it's not my height. Like, so I would get stuff like that. I would get stuff like a lot of my classmates had openly racist families, which was awkward. I remember one of my friends, like one of my close friends in high school, she said, yeah, well, it was after school, and she's like, I need to go get something from my grandma. You just stay here. And I was like, okay, well, I mean, can't pull up with grandma.
Story.
Like, well, I'm trying to say hi to grandma. What's good, grandma? And then she's like, yeah, well, my grandma doesn't really like interracial marriage. And I'm like, oh, she doesn't really like my entire existence. And then she goes, well, but she loves you, and she loves your mom. My mom, not my dad. My mom being the black one. So I would deal with a lot of stuff like that. But I'm trying to think of other things. For me, it was just, you know, the N-word was out there a lot. And that's a big thing that Kingsway messed up on, in my opinion, because I know they heard people saying it because everyone was saying it. I went along with it, and I was like, you know what? It'll just make it less awkward and let my friends say it because, you know, it's not a big deal. It's not a big deal. Because that's just what I told myself, and that's what I was told. If you're not saying it in an aggressive manner, then it's not a bad word. You can say it whenever. Teachers would say it 6th grade. I got so many stories, actually. 6th grade, I didn't go to 6th grade because I was a mentally ill young child, and I hated going to school. Probably because everyone was a little bit racist. But we were reading Elijah of Buxton, and the N-word's everywhere in that book. And I was gone for one of the days where that word came up, and my teacher goes, even if MacKenzie was here, I would still say this. And I found that out the next day, and I was like, dang. Whoa. And so it's situations like that make it so uncomfortable for black students at that school because I was one of 4. And so there was a lot of situations like that. My sister had a situation last year with a teacher saying the N-word in class, hard R. And the teacher didn't know that was wrong, and my sister was so uncomfortable, and so my sister told my mom. My mom had to call the principal told the teacher, and the teacher just calls my mom crying, I'm so sorry, you know, it was for the class, I had no idea that would be wrong. And so it's another example of they have no idea, but I think it's a lot of ignorance, and it's a lot of just, I'm in this position, I can do whatever I want, and there's not a lot of them here, so I can't make them mad. That's how it is in my opinion. So
where do you think the change starts for that school?
That is a great question because I think we're long overdue for that change. I do see a lot of positive progression, but I think that the people at the end of the day who are running that school and are highly involved with that school, they make their views very apparent because I feel like that's just the world these days, so it makes sense. You can have whatever views you want, honestly, but I think we should all draw the line at inequality among humans because we're just supposed to love each other, especially if that's what you believe as a Christian. That I feel like that makes sense. So I think I don't know where it's going to start. I think it honestly starts with a lot of the students, and I've heard stories of students standing up, talking to teachers and stuff like that, which is really empowering because I was way too afraid in my time. So I think it's just going to start with the students, and then hopefully we can get some better people in that organization. But I personally think that is a school that's kind of stuck in its ways and probably will stay there for the rest of its time, unfortunately.
And you can tell me if this is too personal, but where are you in your relationship with religion and Christianity after going to a Christian school for that long?
That's a great question. Leaving that school, I was pretty Christian, I would say. Now I've definitely just gotten rid of the religion aspect. I don't like what religion brings out of people. Yeah. I don't really care, honestly, what you believe. I don't really have a problem with that. How you believe it, how you choose to, live that out is on you, as long as it's positive. I'm much more of, I would say, a spiritual person now. I don't believe in the same God that I used to believe in, but I do believe in that there is something higher outside of us. And I think personally I'm just working through that at a much later pace, because normal people who don't go to Christian school would kind of be figuring that out in their younger teen days.
Yeah.
Now getting to leave that place where everything was crammed into
there's
you.
There's a lot of unlearning.
Yeah, like guilt and shame for that, but I think it's actually really empowering. It doesn't mean that I'm going to leave that religion, I guess, or that belief system, but I'm just going to find it on my own rather than being force-fed it for 18 years.
Definitely. It for me, like, it very much pushed me away from religion. Mm-hmm. And for a long time, I mean, I left after my freshman year, and I wanted no part of the church, but I still considered myself a follower, and it took a lot of that unlearning, but I still wanted to live and take after, like, the good lessons mm-hmm. from Jesus, and like kind of, which I think is totally fair. Yeah, like there are a lot of great lessons, and I think everybody, like all those figures, the Buddha, Jesus, Muhammad, like everyone on their paths to righteousness, mm-hmm. like made really great points, and then when it gets into the hands of kings,
it's so altered, and that's another thing I learned after leaving. Like, so many things that I was taught that they were fact, literally are not fact. Yeah. And they like to just say it as if they are, and then if you ask questions, no, it's a fact. You have you read the Bible 13 times? Like, and then you're like half gaslit by your Bible teacher mm-hmm. to believe these things that, like, you learn later are literally not true. So taking the good out of it is what I like to do as well.
I was thinking about this today, and I don't even think I told you this, Dylan. I remember it was like fall 2019. I'm in my sophomore year at WSU, and I lived just down the street from this, I think, Lutheran church.
Oh, my family was Lutheran.
Oh, okay. So then maybe you could speak on whatever this was. But I had, like, still slightly, I considered myself a follower, but I was very removed from it, mm-hmm. and I was like figuring out my other beliefs and like hearing about other worldviews mm-hmm. and this kind of thing. And I had this like feeling that like you're called to go do something, a feeling that I had felt like when I was very much in it mm-hmm. as a Christian, where you feel like called by God. And I felt like every Sunday came around and was like, you should go into the church. You should go and give it another chance. And I had this feeling of like being called by God. And so one Sunday, it was like really like heavy on my heart. I sound like the Bible teacher. This was really heavy on my heart. Just that being tugged by the Lord.
By the Holy Spirit, yes.
And so it was that same feeling, and I was like, okay, I got up, I got ready. I walked by myself just up the street to the church, and like the priest or whatever their title is greets me at the door, and he's like in his robe, and he hands me like a hymnal book, and I'm like, okay, this is a little different from what I'm used to, but like, let's give it a shot. And I'm like feeling very like, you need to be here, mm-hmm. you need to see this, and I'm looking around, and I am the youngest person there by about 40 years. Yep. But also like in my age group, I'm the oldest there by about 15. And I'm like, okay, this is different. And then the priest turns to me and he goes, by the way, today we are doing an animal service worship. And have you heard of this before? This is something I wanted to do a little research on. Maybe Dylan, you could look this up. Lutheran
animal service.
But he was talking about how they had like a bunch of dogs and like cats and stuff in the back, and they were gonna like join them for the service, and I'm like, what the fuck? And
he made that up so he could get his dog Fido to come out.
I don't know. I think it was a Lutheran church, but it was like an animal service, animal worship. I don't know. It was like, he was like, by the way, like, this isn't like a normal every Sunday kind of thing. Like, I just don't want to scare you off or whatever. And I'm like, I just dragged myself here because I felt like called by God to see this. And then I'm looking around, and I don't think I've ever felt more out of place before. And it's like the same feeling of, did you find something?
Yeah, so this says, in remembrance of his love for all creatures. Wait, I got the wrong one. Saint Francis of Assisi is associated with the patronage of animals, and it has become customary for Catholic and Anglican churches to carry out animal blessing ceremonies on his feast day of the 4th of October. Kind of weird.
Wow. Yeah, my family's Lutheran, and I'm surprised a Lutheran or Catholic church. Yeah, great job, Dylan. Thank you. Dylan. Thank you for that information. I'm very surprised that they would do something like that because they're the most strict, and that's why I hated my family's church. We literally have our own church. I'm sorry, I can't. It's right by your house. It's so like rigid, and I feel like that's a big thing for me. There's no relationship in my opinion, but yeah, hymns.
Yeah, no, like
everyone's 80.
It was so weird, and I'm like, after that feeling of like, this is heavy on my heart, I'm feeling called by the Lord to go see this church. I look around and I've never felt more out of place, and I'm like, I don't know what called me here, but it was to see this and to move on. And I placed the hymn on the table, and I picked up my phone and acted like I got a call, and I walked right back to my house.
That's actually funny because
that was the last time I was in a church.
The last time I was in a church was here. It was my freshman year, and I felt called. But in my opinion, I think that's also just shame of like of leaving that lifestyle and stuff like that. And so we in my opinion, I feel like a lot of people who are Christians or believe in God, they use God's telling me this, but I feel like that's ourselves telling us that.
Yeah.
So I felt very shameful because I was like, I'm not going to church. Like, I was I was a great Christian, blah, blah, blah. So I went out to this church with Khalees and some of the football boys. Okay. And it was great. It was a pretty, like, what's it called when it's chill? Is that non-denominational?
Non-denominational.
One of those. And it was great. But again, I just was like, I don't feel like I'm supposed to be here. Yeah. And so then I never went back. But not in a bad way, but it was just like, it's just kind of not the same. And that's not how I feel like my relationship with what I believe should go. I don't think I need to go to a church. I think I can just connect with myself and my surroundings and stuff like that. So, but yeah, that's funny because I went in and then I left and I was like, that's it for me.
It's really interesting. Have you seen those videos on like worship in those non-denominational churches in like spiritual manipulation?
I know spiritual manipulation, but I explain a little bit more if you can because I'm interested.
I was watching this video on this this woman was talking, and she said she was like, she's ex-evangelical, and she was on a worship team for her church, and she talked about how they like planned out how they were going to do their songs, and like you know that feeling like when you're in church and you're like really deep in worship.
That's the one area I connected for me personally was like worship. That was probably one of the strongest connections I had with like God and stuff like that.
Yeah, so. No, like you get that feeling like, oh, I can feel God right now. But they talked about like how it was all psychological, and they would plan out how they were going to do the songs, like Oceans, like such a powerful song, but they build it slowly. And like there were a couple songs before, so like people are getting really into it, and there's like a lot of showmanship like up on stage, and they keep building the anticipation to like those higher notes. I don't know music well enough to talk about these kind of things, but they'll turn it back down and it'll just be like a little bit of guitar, like that like weird
Yes.
synth sound. And so like it's all turned way down, and so you can like hear somebody crying while they're like saying like, be with us here, God, and like you're hearing somebody
and you're
cry
like,
off
what?
in the corner. And so like you're feeling their energy and everything, and they hold it for a long time, so you're like deep in that moment.
Because all you have to do
and
is
then
create
they
an
bring it
emotional
back
response.
up.
That's it. And then that emotional response, which is a human feeling, that's God. And so then you just shift and think that is that. That's so interesting, because it's so weird. Because I remember I left.
How they can manufacture a powerful God experience.
And I don't think that everyone is doing it. I think that the origin of a lot of it started like that, and then now it's just normal. Because how many times do you like walk in and there's like the white guy in the flannel on the guitar playing his little thing, and he's like, everyone, here for a reason, please come sit with. And it's like the talking, the slowness, it's so like extra, which is, it's great if that's what you want, but I think it is so like fabricated. And it's really interesting, because when I left Kingsway, I went back because my sister had something, or like one of their little shows. What a random thing that they have us do. Why do we have to do like shows for the school? But whatever. And one of the like pastors was talking, and it is so dramatic. Like it made me laugh, because I was like, I thought this was it. I thought this man was so powerful and so knowledgeable, if that's even a word, and just like was so great. But it's just like he's just talking slow about anything that's coming into his brain and trying to sound smart. And everyone's just like, wow, this man is sent from God himself.
Once you're removed from it and come back,
it's hilarious. It's funny. But I mean, everyone do you.
Yeah, no, 100%. We don't want to shut anyone down, but
it is a little funny.
Our experience. Yeah. Just a little funny. And I think any reasonable Christian, Dylan, you can, he's laughing, understands what we're talking about with the difference in Kingsway and these kind of places versus like churches that are doing it the right way. I have a lot of respect for people who have faith across different religious backgrounds and do it from a place of love and also mind their business. I just see a lot of hypocrisy outside of those.
I think that's the biggest, like, I'm not going to say turn off to religion, because I feel like that's inappropriate. But like my biggest turn off to religion is the people who are shaming me are doing these other egregious acts and calling out other people groups and not holding themselves accountable. So it's hard to trust people. I think that's a big thing for me. And so that's why I just kind of wanted to remove it and go through it on my own. Not that I'm smarter than anybody. I'm sure that what a lot of these people are saying is great. For me, it's just like I have a hard time with how being brought up in Kingsway was. It's a lot of hypocrisy. So,
what were some of the things you felt going through chapels and Bible classes at that school, as you were closeted at this time, but as a gay woman?
So that my Kingsway experience being gay now, which is hilarious to look back on, I thought I literally was straight. I remember one of the units we talked about in Bible class was homosexuality, and this was like, I kind of had realized that I was not fully heterosexual my junior year. Just some experiences that had gone on there. I was like, you know what, I think that I am not straight all the way. And so I was interested to learn, about homosexuality, because that was at that time a topic that a lot of churches were like really open to, and people were kind of like getting over it. Yeah. So I was like, okay, cool. This will be interesting. Let me just learn. And then my teacher was like, no, this is wrong. And what do they say? Like, hate the sin, love the sinner, or something like that. Yeah. Or whatever that is. And I'm like, that's ridiculous. And so that's kind of how I viewed it. And so then I lived my life for a little bit being like, well, I guess, this is a sin that I'm accustomed to. That's how I would explain it to people. Because I was also homophobic, because that school made me homophobic. Literally, I was homophobic. So I'm sorry if I've ever said anything wrong to somebody. But I made myself homophobic because I was just being told that this is bad, and this is my sin that I'm trying to fight. So that's literally how I viewed my sexuality, was like something that was trying to attack me that I had to attack back. So I was closeted my whole time there. And looking back, a lot of my friends were like, oh my God, we totally knew you were gay. And I was like, hey, whatever, you guys could have helped me out then. But yeah, it took me leaving for me to really realize, and I had no problem. I never was ashamed of it, which is something I'm happy about, because like the concept of love like always meant a lot to me. So I wanted to have like the truest form of it.
Yeah.
But yeah, when I remember I told one of my friends, well, she actually texted me when she found out when I was in college. She said, I don't agree with this lifestyle at all, but you were such a great friend, and, I'm here to support you, even though this is something that I can't agree with. And I was like, what a weird text. Like, am I supposed to be excited or happy? I don't need your approval.
Yeah,
but
like, just...
That was the last time I talked to her, so...
Yeah, no, just, like, edit out that part. Like, I don't see why... You have to put all your beliefs onto somebody else's
I don't
life.
really care what you believe. If you're genuinely happy, you can be genuinely happy.
You don't have to say you support me.
Yeah.
Just be like, you're a great friend and I love you. Like,
exactly.
You can leave it at that, and then you can keep to yourself, like, you're going to hell.
Yeah, exactly. So, yeah, leaving Kingsway, that's when I was able to really live my life and figure out my life, and I feel like that was just a big reflection time for all aspects of my life at Kingsway, my life coming up, stuff like that. So thank God I was never 100% gay in high school, because I don't even know how, like, there's some people who are out at Kingsway and I have nothing but the utmost respect for them, because I could never do it. And I just hear stories about what they're called and, things like that, the harassment that they get. But I think it's so awesome and so powerful that they can do that, because I never could. So
we're going to switch over to music.
Yeah, Ken.Z.
I feel like you've experienced a lot of growth in the last few years. How has music been a part of that?
That's a great question. For me, music started as a literal joke.
Yeah.
We've talked about this before. Dylan, you're the OG music maker over there. Started as a joke in high school, and we would just make funny songs. And then when I went to when I went to college, I got my own mic. And so I would just sit in my dorm room, because there's nothing really to do here in Pullman, especially when you're a freshman in the dorms. So
Do that, recruits.
yeah, don't do it. Just kidding, go Cougs.
Go Cougs.
But I was like, I'm just going to make a song. And so I just would make music, and I remember the transition of like using male pronouns, like for like my love interest in the song, transitioning into like girls, and I was kind of a little bit nervous, but at the time no one was listening to my music. And then I made one song, Options, like February of 2020, right before the COVID shutdown.
Banger.
And I was like, why is this song low-key actually kind of good? Because all my songs before were just for my girlfriend at the time. Like she would just like say, oh, I want a song about this, I want a song about this, and so I would just do it. But then I made Options, and I was like, wow, this is actually really fun and a really like good song. And Dylan and I, we were in the midst of a big quarrel, and even Dylan was like, this song's actually pretty good. And so I was like, man, if my biggest enemy right now at the time could actually like it, maybe I should like have some more confidence in myself.
Yeah.
So as time went on, I just tried to get a little bit more serious with it. And it just gave me confidence to like be openly gay and like explore that side of music, because there's not a lot of artists that you hear that are openly gay girls and stuff like that. So I don't know, I just like kept growing with it, and then Dylan came here, and then now we're actually making like really fun songs. But I feel like my music just kind of evolved with me, and it was always like my outlet of just something fun to do. So it was never that deep.
Yeah, no, it's always really cool to hear about like how music and doing things creatively have helped people. When I was doing the show last year, Beau show, I had a conversation with one of my longest friends, like my
tallest
like,
friend
not my
ever.
Not my oldest friend. Like I have friends that are older. Like my longest friendship.
Yeah.
Like my baby BFF,
Yes.
JT Rogers, and he talked about like using music as therapy, being a trans man, and it's just so cool to hear about like how it helped your confidence recording music, and even if no one was hearing it, like becoming more assured in yourself through that. I've heard some new songs that haven't been released yet, which are absolute hits, like really excited about those. It's cool to be around people that you like what they do creatively, because I think we've all been there where a friend sends you a SoundCloud link and it's
like,
just, oh God.
Just noise. Yeah.
But you and Dylan make things that I will play on my own and put
That's
on
so cool.
playlists and send to people. You're working on a new project now. Can you tell us a little about that?
Yes, I can tell you a little bit about it. Me and Dylan are working away. After I do this little interview, I'm probably going to go in the closet, which is where we record, and make some...
In the wardrobe.
Yes.
Is what we
I think it's so funny that you just hear... You get to hear everything, too, which is so funny.
Yeah.
You're just sitting watching football on the couch, and, like, the loud speakers are going.
Yeah.
But, so I'm in the process of working on it. I really am picky, and Dylan knows this, and it's a horrible, horrible shame to have to work with me because I'm the most, like, nitpicky person with all my songs. So whatever I put out, I will be very proud of, and I'm just in the process of trying to branch out and try new things and do different like genres and stuff like that. And this is all produced by Dylan and I. So Dylan is making all the beats. And so I think it's just really cool that we're able to like have this broad spectrum of music that we're creating right now. I have no idea when it'll come out. Hopefully soon. It could. I got enough songs. I just am so like, it just needs to be perfect. So we're in the process of it right now.
Hell yeah. Do we have a name for it?
I don't have a name. We're gonna have to think about it.
Okay.
I don't got nothing.
No, I mean...
Nothing to look forward to.
Been there. I mean, I've been saying soon about releasing this podcast for 2 months.
Just do it.
Yeah, no, I'll do it now. You'll probably be episode 1 with the timeliness, and then Alsada Bacana, episode 2. We get some really cool guests lined up after Kenzie. But Kenzie, thank you so much for sharing a little bit about your story. I'd love to have more conversations.
I'd love to.
On some microphones soon. This was a real treat.
Oh, thank you, Beau. I enjoyed doing this. My first podcast. This is like so cool. I feel like one of the guys now. So, yeah.
So,
I feel so professional just speaking right now. So, but thank you, Beau.
Yeah, no, of course. Where can people find you if they want to reach out or hear your music or watch your highlight tape?
Too much. Music.
Or get in arguments on Twitter with you.
That's a good one. Music is ken.z, Ken.z. My Instagram is MacKenzie.Ellertson. And I think my Twitter is Mac_Ellertson. So that's me.
Sweet. Those will all be linked in the show notes.
Go.
Kenzie, Dylan, thank you both. I'm Beau Braden. This was Beau Talks.
Yeah, look at you. That shit was professional.